Hello, and welcome to the podcast. My name is Melissa Hoffman, and I'm the project director of the Tennessee Network for Trauma-Informed and Evidence-Based Systems, an NCTSN Category 3 site. Today I'm going to be talking to Dr. Felicia Gibson of the Post-Adoption Support Services Program at CCFH in Durham, North Carolina. The post-adoption program provides Caring for Children Who Have Experienced Trauma, a workshop for resource parents, or as we know it, the Resource Parent Curriculum, or RPC. They have a special emphasis on providing the RPC to adoptive parents. As their process evolved, they began to offer a complementary group for adoptees called Families and Adopted Children Together, or FACT. Dr. Gibson, thank you for your willingness to share information about your FACT groups in this podcast. Could you start by telling us what the FACT group is?
Yes. Well, thank you for having me, first of all. I'm excited to talk about the opportunities that we've had with our FACT group. So we offered this group to adopted children ages 7 to 17 and their adoptive parents. We have it go for a total of 9 weeks, and we meet one night a week for approximately 2.5 hours. Every week we have dinner, and that is with all of the families and all of the kids together at the same time, just as a way to facilitate that continued communication and kind of openness with each other. There's always 2 facilitators for each child group, and we've been trying to keep our groups under 10, and I think our biggest group so far has been 9 kids. And then another big portion of our group is what we've been calling family together time, which is a time at the end of the group where the parents and the children get together to talk about the activities and the topics that they discussed earlier in the evening as a way to start that conversation about adoption from the very beginning, and then continue that conversation throughout the week with homework that they have every night.
Sounds really interesting. It also sounds like your work providing RPC workshops led to your development of FACT. Could you tell us a little bit about how that came about?
Definitely. It did come as a result of our RPC workshops and a lot from our parent comments that we had. Parents were often telling us that their kids were feeling very isolated and alone, and that they had a lot of shame and loss related to their adoption. And then as assessments are a part of what we do, we heard that from adopted children as well. In addition, parents were telling us that the RPC group was really great at providing them a trauma lens and a way to kind of look at difficult behaviors, but what it wasn't giving them was a way to talk to their children and have these discussions with their children about adoption and about loss. And then the other reason that we developed it is that we had quite a few parents that were not able to participate due to childcare kinds of problems. And so we thought this might be a good way to address some of those needs as well as get more parents to participate in the RPC group.
Okay. So how do you combine the FACT group with your RPC groups?
So really what we have done is kind of mapped on the themes and the ideas for each of the RPC modules really kind of coincide with what we're talking about and concentrating on for that week of the child group as well. So for example, when we address feelings and safety and advocacy and self-care within RPC, we're also addressing those things within the child group, with the difference being a major focus on that adoption piece of things and how it relates to them as children versus as parents.
Great.
So that's really the main way. Another kind of thing that we do is when we teach the parents concepts like the cognitive triangle, parents were telling us that they really liked that concept but struggled to explain it to their children. And so we do explain the cognitive triangle to the children at the same day that we explain it to their parents so that they can have that increased conversation and increased communication about some of the tools that RPC provides as well.
Okay. Now, what were you hoping to achieve as a result of combining these 2 groups together?
Well, so when we kind of started this thing off, and even today, there are 4 specific goals that we're really looking to achieve. The first one is to connect adopted children and their families. We heard from a lot of kids that they never knew any other adopted children before, and so it was just a way to kind of get that connection and to help them somewhat normalize some of the things that they're going through. Our second goal was to bring adoption out of the shadows. We felt like a lot of families talk about adoption, but it's also kind of the white elephant in the room, so to speak, that, they might say something about it, but it's really not talking much. And an example of that is that I had a family, several in fact, that when I talked to them, they said that they talk about adoption very frequently in their house. And I would say, well, tell me some of the things you talk about. And they would say, well, we just say they're adopted. And so we decided that we wanted those conversations to be much more rich than that and wanted to help parents to do that. And that's part of what that family together time is about, to give parents some of the language and the words to be able to make those conversations much more meaningful. So that kind of goes into our third goal, which is to increase communication about adoption between children and parents. And then our fourth goal was really to normalize that identity exploration piece of adoption that adoptees all go through, and just to help them see that they're not alone in this process, really.
Great. So are you finding that your goals are being met?
Definitely. We have done more anecdotal kinds of data collection with that, just talking to parents and getting a sense of what they see are improvements. And they've told us that they're seeing increases in self-esteem, they're seeing increases in openness about adoption with their parents as well as their peers. We even had one of the kiddos in our group, the parent said that he was extremely secretive about his adoption and wouldn't even tell some of his closest friends. And then after the group, he brought his friend to his house, his best friend, and brought out his life book and actually shared his life book with his best friend. So we're really getting a sense that kids are starting to understand a little bit more about adoption and feel a lot more comfortable sharing that aspect of them with others as well.
Wow.
So the other thing that we think is helpful in terms of that connection piece is that several of the families and the kids have continued to meet even after the group has ended. So that's been a really nice thing to be able to see that some of those connections made are lasting connections. And then this kind of gets into a little bit more kind of what's coming next, but we're looking to get some more data-driven analysis, and so we've come up with some pre- and post-evaluations and are also using a self-esteem measure to try to get a little bit more specific data on what we're seeing as improvements because of the group.
Mm-hmm. So what else do you have in the future for your groups?
So we have quite a few things we're kind of wanting to do. One of the things that we're going to do here in a couple of weeks is we're going to have our first reunion. And what that's going to be is we've had about 7 groups so far. So we're going to invite all of the children and parents from those groups to do a low ropes course, just as a way to kind of have an afternoon together and get to meet even more adopted children and their families, and then to get some of those kids that might not be able to continue seeing each other just to have that connection. Mm-hmm. And that's something that we're hoping is going to go well and that we'll be able to continue to do either on a monthly basis or every couple of months. So that's one of the things that we're doing right now. One of the other things, I think I shared that 7 to 17 is kind of our target range, and what we've noticed is that the 8 to 14 is really the age that we're seeing a lot of participants signing up for the group. But we've had a couple of teenagers, and so we're going to be adapting the curriculum to be much more teenage friendly and have some of those adaptations that will just make it seem a little bit more helpful for those teenagers rather than for the 8 to kind of 14-year-old range. And then our ultimate goal, once we finish the piloting process, and we've really kind of gotten some things nailed down and figured out how to work some of the kinks out, is we're hoping to share this curriculum with the RPC Learning Center so that we can have this be something that other agencies and other places can provide as well.
That would be great. Any other final words or anything else you want us to know about this really innovative group you have going on? Well,
I think it's been a lot of fun, actually. It's a very different thing than RPC, and the kids are just really having a lot of fun. And that's really what we try to do, is infuse that fun with that psychoeducation and kind of learning about themselves and different pieces of that. And that's kind of the biggest thing that kids have told us, is that it's just a really fun group. I had a kid we started our group 2 weeks ago, and I saw him before the second week, and he was just so excited about coming back because he had so much fun the first day. And so that just makes me really happy that kids are not only getting a lot out of it, but that they're really enjoying themselves in the process too.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Gibson, for sharing information about this group, and we're really looking forward to hearing more about it as your curriculum develops.
Definitely. Well, thanks for letting me share. It's been, like I said, a lot of fun to have the group and facilitate it, and a lot of fun to see the kids grow and learn as well. So I appreciate being able to share.
Thanks.